Okay. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our Friday night leisure stream. How are you, Father?
Doing well, Beto. How are you?
Doing great. Happy Friday in Lent. Happy First Friday. Happy Feast of Saint Colette. Just an overall wonderful day. I would ask if you received Holy Communion today, Father, but you do so every single day. So
There you go.
there we go. So I believe that this year, Good Friday is in about a month from now. It's going to be on a First Friday. So people traditionally always have that question of, oh, hey, the faithful don't receive communion on Good Friday. So that's always the interesting part of the year. But at the end of the day, Father, the whole point of the devotion to the Sacred Heart is to make reparation for all the transgressions against the Holy Eucharist. So really, whether we receive Holy Communion or not, of course, it's Good Friday. So traditionally, people would consider their Holy Communion to kiss the crucifix during the veneration of the cross, which that's one of the changes from the pre-55 to 1962, and that is that in the pre-55 rite, in the ancient Roman Catholic rite, only a priest can touch the cross. In the 1962 rite, they have some altar servers hold up the cross for the people to come venerate it, which is interesting that the faithful, would consider venerating the crucifix on Good Friday as their communion for that day. And then they allow some altar servers to now hold it in the 1962. So when there's only one priest in the pre-55 rite, that priest would have to go out of their way of like reading the Lamentations or something like that if something needed to be handled with the crucifix. Nobody can touch it. So it's interesting how even before the Novus Ordo, we already are seeing some signs of communion in the hand. But then anyway, that's just a fun fact.
Extraordinary ministers of Holy Communion, since the altar servers are touching the cross.
Yeah, exactly. That's where I was going as well. So we start seeing some Bugnini changes, and so people go like, "Well, there are no big changes." Well, no, there are some pretty big changes. But anyway, First Friday. So this is a book that is really nice. It's in Spanish for anyone that may be a Spanish speaker or that may have a Spanish-speaking home like the Flat Cat House. This book on Amazon is just a wonderful find. It's a devotion to the Sacred Heart book, but just in Spanish. And then this week, this book came in, La Victoria del Porvenir, by Martyr Anacleto González Flores, which is interesting, Father, that similarly to how in the English-speaking world, a lot of these classics are available on 10 books, not this one. Of course, you can't. I don't think there's an English translation of this one. It's too politically incorrect. It's too political. So it's even a miracle that we have these copies in Spanish because of how Freemasonic the Mexican bishops are. And even the Spanish bishops are gay. So the Spanish bishops are gay and the Mexican bishops are Freemasons. So it's fascinating that we have these books, but it's all thanks to Amazon, which is crazy that a corporation that we usually see as evil gives us access to these spiritual classics that we otherwise there's really very, very limited availability when it comes to the Spanish language. So that's interesting. So we are able to purchase these books and keep them available for our children as they grow up and then start to come of age and start to need to learn the issues with the Freemasons, with the Protestants. Now, one interesting thing, Father, is that the Cristeros considered Protestantism equally to Freemasonry and atheism. So it's a system to destroy morals.
Right.
And now they're like, oh, there are brothers, there are this or that. So anyway, that's just my rant as we start the show. I see Mr. Mark Becker logging on. Hey, Mark, good to have you here in the chat. Gavin, good evening to you as well. The Lost Creole, good evening, groomers. I don't know what that means. Oh, grifters. Yes, this is a good time as we're starting the show, Father. This is a good time to remind our audience that Restless Heart Media, an apostolate of the Oblates of St. Augustine, is now monetized. So we are officially grifters. You can officially support the Oblates of St. Augustine via the super chat. So we want to encourage everybody to donate to the Oblates of St. Augustine through the super chat. And another one of the benefits, Father, is that it promotes the show more. It allows us to get out to more people. The more that YouTube sees that the show gets promoted.
Right, because YouTube gets a cut of the super chats, right? Small cut. And so it's like, okay, if this episode is getting super chats, then YouTube says, oh, this is probably a good video. So let's push it out in the algorithm to more people. And so it definitely helps the channel grow, for sure.
Exactly. Rob says, there are plenty of copies of Tucho's books. I haven't looked. So... And then the Lost Girl says, Español es un lenguaje más cerca de Dios. I've seen some obscure quotes from some popes, Father, where they say that certain popes say that Spanish is like the greatest language in the world, in world history, maybe next to Latin and maybe Greek.
Maybe Greek.
Yeah. So anyway, so tonight we talk about whatever you all want to talk about. I saw that a Maronite bishop apparently got arrested in San Diego. There's a lot of stuff going on.
Chaldean.
Oh, there we go. Chaldean.
Yeah.
For some crazy stuff like money laundering and things. It's like, okay, how can you money launder as a bishop of like small eparchy? Strange. But tonight we talk about whatever you all want to talk about. We started out this stream, Father, without any topics to talk about as the questions come in. We have nearly 50 people logging on. We are live on X. We are live on YouTube. Both platforms take questions. We'll answer questions on either platform. We're getting ready for that. But anyway, yeah. So I posted, Father, that in this book, The Devotion to the Sacred Heart of our Blessed Lord Jesus Christ, it mentions that our Lord says that the Feast of Corpus Christi is a feast for Him to show us how much He loves us. Mm-hmm. And the Feast of the Sacred Heart is for us to show Him how much we love Him. And I had a little bit of a flashback in my life to when people that you would think that are traditional Catholics. I had somebody one time ask me, "Well, why is everybody at church tonight?" I was like, "Well, that's because tomorrow's the Feast of the Sacred Heart. So traditionally, this was at an SSPX church. Traditionally, the faithful visit the Blessed Sacrament before First Fridays, but also before, even more so, before the Feast of the Sacred Heart. So a lot of things made a little more sense in my life after I reread that, because it proposes this meditation for every first Friday of the month. As I was remembering that, I thought that was pretty interesting. But anyway, what's going on at Our Lady of Good Hope, Father?
Well, this morning we had confessions at 6:30 in the morning, followed by 7 a.m. Mass for First Friday, followed by an hour of adoration, exposition of the Blessed Sacrament, followed by benediction, because it was First Friday. Then after that, I Zoom called with someone who's going to be the MC. One of our seminarians is going to be the MC for Holy Week. So we went over Good Friday, as we were just talking about Good Friday at the beginning of this episode. All the different, basically liturgies, the 4 of the different little parts within Good Friday liturgy. And then afterwards, we met with people looking to kind of rent some space at the hall. And then we had stations. And then now I'm here.
Nice. I see the Lost Creole asks, so kissing the crucifix by the faithful was not practiced pre-55 on Good Friday. So no, it's always been. The only difference is that it was in the pre-55 liturgy, only an ordained priest can touch the crucifix, the cross that is venerated. After starting in the in the Pius XII reforms, they started allowing like a couple of, so traditionally it would be placed on a cushion on the floor, basically near the altar rail or near the sanctuary and the nave, so that the faithful could come and kiss the crucifix. But nobody's supposed to touch it other than with their lips. That's what I meant. In the 62, extraordinary ministers of holding the cross can hold it. So a couple of acolytes, whomever, they hold it standing up, and then the people come and kiss it, instead of it being on the floor and then the priests participating and usually reading the lamentations during the veneration of the cross. So that's what I meant. And then the Los Creole says 7 a.m. mass is that much more closer to heaven.
Are we gonna need to drink a little espresso a couple hours before going to heaven as well? Because 7 a.m. is pretty early.
It is very early, especially getting up.
Being there for 6:30 confessions, but then before that, I have to open the doors, I have to turn the air conditioner, I have to set everything up. So I have to be there. I'm usually leaving the seminary here around 6 o'clock every morning.
Yes, because it takes some time to set up for mass and make sure that you start. If I remember correctly, Father, did you tell me one time that Father John would start mass like 2 minutes more or less before the actual time, so that he could be starting the prayers at the foot of the altar in a low mass right at the time that mass would start?
No, he just had his fixation of always setting his watch 1 minute before whatever he said, like whether his computer, Apple, whether it was like Fox News, how they have the time sitting there on the screen, whatever his standard for setting his watch was, he'd always set his watch like 1 minute before the actual time. And so he was always 1 minute earlier than my phone, saying that it was time. Like, nope, time to go.
1 minute. There we go. Are you drinking tonight, Father?
I'm having my classic old fashioned.
Nice.
What about you?
Just having some straight bourbon with a little bit of tiny splash of water. I joked with you that I need a scruples spoon for water for the bourbon.
Why do you put water in bourbon? You put water in scotch, not bourbon.
Well, I put water on bourbon. It tastes great. Because I do. I just do. It tastes great.
Must be a Mexican thing.
It tastes great. I don't know if it's just a me thing. I don't know if it's a Mexican thing. I just do it and it tastes way better. I used to not like bourbon at all. And then I started doing that. I like it.
What brand?
This one is Basil Hayden. I don't remember exactly which.
Okay. Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah, I finished recently a bottle of cheaper bourbon, and then I was like, what do I have? So then I started going to the back, and then I found a bottle of Knob Creek, and then I found a little bottle of Basil Hayden. So the Basil Hayden bottle was easier to open for right now, so I just opened it up. So.
Basil Hayden is pretty good. I like Knob Creek. I usually, typically my bar bourbon is the Wild Turkey 101. That's what Father John really liked, so that's what rubbed off on me.
There was one time when I made a Manhattan with Wild Turkey rye, just because it was pretty much one of the cheaper ryes in the store. I did not like it. I didn't like it with rye. It was very, it tasted like water. That's funny.
Yeah.
The Lost Girl says, all trad priests should drink old-fashioned. I guess.
I like them.
So we have our first question. Here we go, because we have a lot of people logged in, but nobody's asking questions. You all can ask questions.
We're here to hang out with you guys, not just to talk to. I could talk to Alberto. I could just call him up and be like, "Hey, dude, what's up? How was your day?" I could do that anytime I want. We have to be on live stream for that. We're here to be with you guys.
Exactly. All right. So first question of the night. Rob says, "What do you think of the Iran war?" Do you want to start, Father?
I think it's pretty interesting that a bunch of Muslims are fighting for the Jews. That's pretty unique. Obviously, like for me, when Trump turned on DeSantis, and okay, so in Trump's first term, he was against Roe versus Wade because he said this needs to be a decision of the states. Send the decision back to the states. Okay, Roe versus Wade was overturned. The decision went back to the states. Then DeSantis comes out, before the 2024 elections, and says we're going to ban abortion completely in the state of Florida. This is after Kansas makes it completely legal and other states have made abortion completely legal. But Trump goes after DeSantis and says, no, You cannot make it completely illegal in Florida. You need to have like a couple months for the women to decide whether or not they want to have an abortion. And so obviously that's blanket pro-abortion. Whenever I saw that, I realized this is not a principled man. This is not a principled man. This is a man who uses the policies to get elected, to pursue some sort of ulterior motive, some other agenda. The agenda isn't obviously Christendom. It isn't something that's a rightly ordered society toward God. Obviously not. It was just he was picking and choosing which policies would eventually get him elected for something else. So that being said, literally people were saying that we should still vote Trump because he's pro-life, because he's anti-war. He's not going to start any new wars. I know it's a policy, not a principle. And so if that policy gets in the way from his ulterior motive, his real reason for being president, whatever agenda he actually has, then he's going to scrap the policy. He's going to scrap the policy. And this is what we've been seeing throughout his presidency. He's just scrapping policies. So really my only hope for a Trump presidency was that we would have an easier time, a lower cost of living, that at least he would work economically. Things would be, grocery prices would be cheaper, gas cheaper, things would be great economically, just financially. But now with this Iran war, obviously gas prices are up 34% in just a week. I don't even think the one thing I wanted, we're not even going to get, because everything else has been thrown under the bus. So that's kind of what I think about the Iran war. Is like, obviously he found himself in a tight spot where he couldn't achieve what he truly wanted to achieve. And so he had to scrap the policies that he promised. No new wars. That's pretty blanket. That's pretty complete in the sense of total. No new wars. It doesn't allow for one new war. It says no new wars. And yet he went back on it. So this is why I know he was never a principled man. Therefore, I couldn't trust that he was actually going to keep his word. He's actually going to keep his policies. And so this is why I've always had a problem with him in that sense, because I vote for him, but then he goes against what I voted for. What do you think, Alberto?
No, I'm very much right there, right along with you. So the thing is that what a lot of people maybe don't understand is that I came out in support of, back then not yet President Trump, back even in like 2014 when he first declared his campaign. When he comes down the stairway over then in New York City, he declares that he's running for president. I came out, and when everybody thought that he was crazy, I was saying, no, look, a lot of the things that he's saying are right. Like, I've lived near the border or at the border for a long time. Grew up in Mexico, have a family in Mexico, go to Mexico relatively often. And a lot of the stuff that he was saying was completely correct. And people also need to remember that it was so we had the recession of 2008. And then mainly in the United States, of course, it affects globally. And anything that happens economically in the United States usually affects globally. And then we had after that, 2009, 2010, more or less, violence in Mexico escalated heavily. So that's the time of Trump's announcements is actually closer to that than what we are now, over here in 12 years after Trump announced. So that was only 6-7 years. Sorry, not even that. That's less than 5 years after, and still during the violence in Mexico being very horrible. So everything that he was saying made a lot of sense to me. And so I came out and actually supported what he was saying, got a lot of hate for it. And then everybody thought that he was crazy. Everybody thought that the campaign was just going to flame out. And then it doesn't. He keeps growing, and the media gives him more coverage. Why? I don't really know why. So it seems like the media propelled him. So the media gives him coverage, and he starts gaining a lot of momentum and a lot of support, and then he wins the primary. And then people thought that Ted Cruz was still going to make a comeback. He doesn't. Trump wins the primary. Everybody thought that Hillary Clinton was going to win in a landslide. And then Trump doesn't. Trump wins. So I was so happy and shocked, but happy when President Trump beat Hillary Clinton. Of course, who wanted Hillary Clinton as president? And so then, so we see the first administration sort of. He even admitted that he had surrounded himself with some people that he shouldn't have, and a lot of chaos. And then whatever happens, and then he's not the president anymore, and then he comes back. Well, by the time that he was coming back, we were already hearing a lot of pro-choice. He was, and his people that he was supporting, attacking strictly pro-life candidates. I remember specifically in Florida, and and even the first lady came out with a book where she was sort of more or less pro-choice, and then Vice President Vance comes out in a speech, which a lot of people give hate to Biden because they say that he's a fake Catholic. I don't hear the same things toward the vice president, even though it seems to be right along the same boat. But he gets less hate. Why? Because we care first about our political party. This is not only in the United States. This is everywhere over actual principles. So anyway, so a lot of the people would actually be surprised that a lot of the things that Trump says, a lot of the more right wing or even just vaguely conservative Mexicans actually support President Trump. People that are not leftists or supporters of like the current president actually support President Trump. Why? Because he does some good things, which he comes out and he says that the drug cartels are terrorists. Of course, conservatives, people that are against that completely agree with that. So anyway, so I wish that things were going differently. They said no new wars, and we were told, oh, if you are not in favor of the campaign, then that means that you want more wars and that you want this and that you don't want that. And then it turns out that everything that we're getting is exactly what, unfortunately, what we had warned about. And the response that I'm getting is, oh well, look, you're not looking at all of the other good things that he's doing. Well, yes, but at the end of the day, we don't want to see him get lose the midterms and then get impeached and get removed. And a lot of the people that I'm talking about are against this war because we were told the Democrats will start wars. The Republican Party will not start wars. And then the rhetoric is also, well, Iran has been a threat for 40 some years. Well, then why were they saying during the campaign no new wars, especially after they had already been in office just 4 years ago? And you would have thought that they had intelligence if this is a threat that has been going on for so many years. And then the Epstein stuff comes out, and then the timing of that, I don't really like the timing of that. So a lot of things that I don't like. And then of course that it's not even a conspiracy theory. It's openly being said that this is being done for Israel. Catholics cannot support Israel, the country of Israel. The Catholic Church is Israel.
Exactly. We have the right. We have the right to that land. The Catholic Church has the right to that land because we inherited all the promises that were given to the original Israel.
And which, by the way, reminds me of the gospel of today, Father. Very strong, where the Lord says, okay, I will send my son, and this time they will listen to what he says, and then they kill the son. That's horrible. That's essentially what happened, which blows my mind, Father, that evangelicals supposed, and unless they know the Bible, but you read parables like this and it's very obvious. And St. Paul, our Lord, says, which is also in the other day of the gospel of, oh, please let me go tell my brothers that about hell. And then Abraham says, no, if they didn't listen to the prophets, why will they listen to you?
Exactly.
So anyway, so that those are my thoughts. I don't like seeing cities just carpet bombed. Horrible stuff. And so I'm talking to a friend who usually listens in, so he's going to be like, oh, you were talking about what I told you. You just told me this right before the show. He says apparently there's even an SSPX mission in Tehran that gets serviced like a few times a year. So a lot of the things that we hear in the media, I don't know. So I can't verify them because I'm not there in the ground, in Iran or anything. But at the very least, I think, Father, that we can just reserve judgment. And if you support Trump, you can at least reserve judgment and then see how this ends.
Exactly. So exactly. My comment had nothing to do with foreign policy or whatever else. It had to do with Trump's promises and then how it affects us in the United States. So those that's I mean, as far as I care about Iran, that's really all I care about.
And then let's see. I'm getting ready for the following question here really quick. Give me a second. Let's see. Effects, recipients.
Maker's Mark French barrel. Never tried it. Maybe you can donate a small bottle to the Oblates and Augustine, and then I'll give you my opinion.
So then Gavin asks, how does a person receive our Lord in the Blessed Sacrament worthily? Details would be appreciated. So what I'll let you take this one, Father, but I will just first say, usually the Catechism of the Council of Trent is really, really good on this. So it says the first preparation which a faithful should make is to distinguish table from table, the sacred table from profane tables, the celestial bread from common bread. This we do when we firmly believe that there is truly present the body and blood of the Lord, of him whom the angels adore in heaven, and whose not the pillars of heaven fear and tremble, of whose glory the heavens and the earth are full. This is to discern the body of the Lord in accordance with the admonition of the apostle. And then the Catechism says, another very necessary preparation is to ask ourselves if we are at peace with and sincerely love our neighbor. If therefore thou offerest a gift at the altar, and there remembers that thy brother has anything against thee, leave there thy offering before the altar, and go first to be reconciled to thy brother, and then coming thou shalt offer thy gift. And then, so the first is faith, is believe, make sure that we believe in the Eucharist. And then the second one is to make sure that we don't have anything against our brother. Which that one, for some reason, everybody always talks about, oh, you have to be in a state of grace. You have to be in a state of grace. Yes, but that is not the only requirement to receive Holy Communion. If you have something against your neighbor, against your brother, you can't receive Holy Communion. Nobody talks about that. This is in the Catechism of the Council of Trent. And then thirdly, examine your conscience if you're defiled by mortal sin. And then yeah, just make sure, examine whether we love our Lord. What do you think about this question, Father? What's your response?
I would have taken it more from, well, obviously this was from the Catechism of the Council of Trent. 3 very good things. What I find a lot of people struggling with is precisely just getting to Mass a little bit early enough to become recollected before Mass even begins. Obviously, when you have children and everything else, life can get extremely busy. A lot of needs just pop up randomly, kind of like, that gopher game where, you hit the gopher that pops out of the hole sort of thing. A lot of parents feel like that on Sunday morning, I'm sure. But just trying to recollect yourself well, pray well. Again, that first thing was to distinguish table from table, to know that what it is you're actually receiving. Because, I mean, while all the grace is there in the Blessed Sacrament that you can receive, what inhibits the reception of the grace is our disposition towards it. So obviously by sin and whatever else. But if we're just like completely and totally distracted during Mass, by our own fault, I mean, sometimes distractions happen just randomly, but by our own fault, this also diminishes the grace that we're able to, that it's able to be efficacious whenever we receive the Blessed Sacrament. So definitely preparation before receiving the Blessed Sacrament. A lot of emphasis is put on Thanksgiving, which is good. Thanksgiving after Mass and having received the Holy Eucharist is very good. Very little emphasis in a lot of prayer books and all that kind of stuff is actually on the preparation for receiving Holy Communion. So, yeah, we just have to remember that we have to prepare for it just as much as we have to give thanks for it. You're muted.
I was saying, thank you for the question, Gavin. If you have anything to follow this up with, feel free to, of course, leave it in the chat. Thanks for the question. Rob4460 says, I agree with Michael Matt. Trump fooled a lot of people. I would actually disagree with this. I don't think that he was fooling anybody, because I think that everything that he was saying was very straightforward. The people that fooled and that continue fooling people are those who say, oh no, he's not saying that because he actually means it. He's saying it because he can't say something else, and blah blah blah, and this or that. So it's the people.
Was Michael Matt warning us about Trump or something? This is what Michael Matt does. Is like he'll be for like Pope Leo. Say, oh yeah, everybody needs to be quiet. Stop attacking Pope Leo. We need to give him a chance. Then one day he'll just switch and start attacking him as if he was always right to begin with. So this is what I don't understand about Michael Matt. So Michael Matt, I remember him being like pro-Trump. So like, what's he saying that Trump fooled people? Well, unless he's talking about himself. In which case, a commentator is supposed to, in a sense, read between the lines, kind of give us a deeper understanding, kind of see things as they are. But if Michael Matt is just going with the flow and all that kind of stuff, going with boomer mentality, and then just one day decides to switch, I mean, he's kind of a follower more than a leader.
But that's what they do. That's what they do very often, and they've been doing in recent years. That is changing their minds and then not admitting that they ever had a change of mind. And that's a problem. They are professional commentators, so we look for them for precisely commentary, because the rest of us, Father, you're busy tending to souls. I'm busy with my family. I'm busy with my job and all that stuff. So we look to them because they are supposed to be the ones that are supposed to be analyzing trends, supposed to have full staffs that are helping them formulate opinions so that they can do the commentary. And then what they actually do is that they come out with absolute coal, basically. And then whenever they see that the popular opinion is going in another way, they shift toward that without ever saying, "Oh, look, yeah, I was wrong about this. I was wrong about that." So it's almost as if the only actual slightly more honest commentary, Father, is you listen to like sports commentators, and they say things that nobody's talking about because you're talking about a game, they're talking about a specific event, and then they get hate for it and whatever. What is the point of having this church and political commentators if they are just going to be listening anyway to what the people are saying and waiting to understand the consensus before shifting their views? They're obsolete.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need them, unfortunately. As much as we would like to look to them as opinion leaders, see, we have Cardinal Mueller, who knows how to watch, has really extensive articles about how he believes heresy, and Michael Matt puts him out as a champion of tradition. Michael Matt has put out Cardinal Sarah as a champion for tradition, and then Sarah says some interesting things, such as when he said, if you're looking for the true Christians, there are the Latin Mass. But then he comes out against the SSPX consecrations.
Mm-hmm.
And as we've talked about it, you talked about it in what's the name of your show with Father Lefort and Bishop Mikkel?
Unspoken Issues.
Unspoken Issues. Yeah, there we go. In Unspoken Issues, you talked about the consecrations. And here's the thing. There's better commentary in, for example, in Unspoken Issues than anything that you can get from the grifters, because Father Lefort, Archbishop Mikkel, Father yourself, Father, you all are talking live, basically, and you know that you can be held accountable for your views, and you don't do commentary for a living. You're busy saving souls. So anyway, that's I don't think that, I think people fool to themselves because we are so desperate for a political savior, and when we are being asked, as literally in every other country where the government has bloodily persecuted the church, I believe what we are being asked for is to give our blood, and we're saying, well, I'll give you my vote. That's, I'll go vote to see if I can get out of a certain situation. And then people say, well,
at this point, voting is kind of effeminate. Would you agree? People or people that want to insist on voting rather than starting a third party or grabbing a gun. There's no political solution, as we've seen. Even the conservative party is they're worried more about who's funding their party more so than the actual policies of those that are elected. Yeah, it's just a lobby.
Yep, absolutely. We have a lot of people logged in, Father, but nobody's posting questions. Come on, let us know what you want us to talk about. We're addressing questions. Chris says, good evening, Alberto and Father. Just finished eating shrimp tacos. Can we use a missile from 1885? Well, he said a missile. A missile, I assume.
So it's kind of funny. Now I'm hungry for fish tacos.
There we go.
1885. So there's been quite a few liturgical changes since 1885. First of all, I think the Feast of Saint Joseph, that is placed on the third Wednesday after Easter. Yes, third Wednesday after Easter. Was on a Sunday. And since then, also too, the Feast of the Sacred Heart has gained an octave. That happened in like 1929. But actually, one of the most interesting changes, I read this in the liturgical year from Prosper Guerinjay. I don't know if you caught this, Alberto, but the Feast of the Holy Name. I thought this was very interesting. The Feast of the Holy Name in our modern traditional calendar is on the Sunday after the Feast of the Holy Name, basically. But it was originally on a Sunday afterward, like the third Sunday after Epiphany or something like that. And it was because the gospel for that Sunday was the wedding feast at Cana. And Don Prosper Garen J explained that the Feast of the Holy Name was put on for the gospel of the wedding feast at Cana because it's precisely at a wedding, at a marriage, when the bride takes the bridegroom's name. And I thought that's so profound. This past year, if you look up that sermon that I have on the Feast of the Holy Name, that's kind of what I preached about, because I just like, I'm just going to preach on this, 'cause that's beautiful. That the holy name of Jesus, like, we now take on his name as Christians. But later on, somehow, just proximity to the circumcision, January 1st, was more important than this profound mystery of taking on our Lord's name. So there are a lot of changes between 1885 and also, obviously 1939 or 1945, whatever mass you go to, or 1955 or 1962. A lot of times, but there's definitely a lot to be said in understanding why feast days were placed on the days they were, even previously, because it's, first of all, it gives you preaching material, obviously, but yeah, no, you can't use an 1885 missal. Obviously, the canon of the mass is the same, but it's like kind of impractical for other reasons.
I was muted. There we go. I'm back. Kristen says, "Good evening, Father and Alberto. Father, what is your favorite duty of priesthood?"
Oof. Duty. Well, I mean, obviously, variety is necessary. You can't just do one thing your entire life and just, like, just literally just one task and find a lot of joy in it. I mean, obviously, I love hearing confessions. I love giving advice to people, helping them conquer their sins. I love offering mass. I love all the intricacies in the 1955 missal. Like, it's complicated enough to be always interesting. Like, you always got to be on your toes for masses. How many collects you have to say, what things you have to commemorate, whether there's a proper last gospel, whether you say Item Missa Es or Benedicamos Domino. You always, once all the changes force you to focus. They force you to not be distracted, because if you're distracted in some of these things, like, man, you're gonna just screw up. So I really love saying mass. Obviously, I mean, helping people grow in holiness is one of my favorite things. It's spiritual direction and spiritual theology is one of my favorite subject matters within the whole broader frame of theology. So giving people spiritual direction, hearing people's confessions is I mean, I love doing it. In terms of duties, I mean, that's kind of, I mean, the sacraments, obviously. Some of the least favorite duties is obviously things that are, very sad and emotional, like funerals, stuff like that. But I mean, they're fulfilling nevertheless. Even though you shed tears, like, there's something about it that you're in the place of Christ doing these things. You're his representative, and so even though these things are sad, they're still fulfilling at the end of the day. So I don't know if there's a favorite duty of the priesthood. But in the priesthood, the same as fatherhood, it's a hood. Like, you're not a father from 9 to 5. You're a father from 12 a.m. to 12 a.m. 100%. There's no taking a day off. So yeah, it's just, yeah, I don't know, everything.
I was having a conversation with a friend last night, Father, regarding fatherhood, and then he says, "I think that something in the brain changes whenever you become a father." And looked it up, and yes, there are some things that change whenever you're a father in an involved household. Like, meaning you don't get to just because you get somebody pregnant and you're technically a biological father doesn't mean that the way that you think changes. So anyway, so that's very, very interesting. Rob asks, "Is it true that Pope Leo declined to comment about Jimmy Lai?" What is that? Let's see. I don't know what that is.
He was
Jimmy,
go ahead.
let's see. Okay, so Jimmy Lai is a Hong Kong businessman and politician. What is the problem? Whether
He was
get in
arrested.
trouble? Oh, I see. Yes, it is. It does seem true. Catholic News Agency comments Pope Leo told EWTN News he cannot comment on the Jimmy lie. The Catholic founder and publisher of the outspoken pro-democracy tabloid Apple Daily, who was. Yeah, I don't know. I suppose it is true. Give me a minute. I'll be right back.
Yeah. Okay, let's go back to the chat. Does meat just war theory? Well, this is always a good question because we don't really truly know the motives for everything. All we know is what the politicians like Marco Rubio tells us from the news. But is that really the case? Marco Rubio said we knew we were going to be attacked, so we just preemptively attacked. I mean, that's not a reason to go kill people that are, yeah. So, I mean, actually, Bishop Miko did this on his channel. What's the name of his channel? I forget the name of his channel. But he ultimately, after his long Tuesday night videos, I need to find his channel so I can tell you guys. Basically explained why this is not meat just war theory. Bishop Miko's channel is called Escaping Mick Religion with Bishop Miko. That's the name of his channel, but the @ is simply Bishop Miko. I'll put that in the chat.
Did he change the name, Father, from the epoch or something?
Yeah. So the new name is Escaping Mick Religion with Bishop Miko. So this is that's his new handle here.
I apologize for that, Father. I was like immediately after the PROCEDAMUS Gala, I came down with like my 3rd cold of the year, which is highly unusual, and it's still having some repercussions when I'm speaking. And then it's just like phlegm gets like, it's gross. It just gets like stuck in my breathing system.
For me right now, it's like always during Lent and Holy Week, I always get these bad allergies. So we were doing our Tuesday night episodes. Like every time I try to talk, like my nose would like just fill up with mucus or whatever. Like, so I could only talk for like 30 seconds straight before my nose was full.
So let me see. Can you hear this, Father? Let me see. Can you hear that? Did you hear that?
No.
Okay, so it's basically just Prevost being asked about the China stuff, and he said, "I can't comment on that." He can't comment because the Noble Sort of Church is in communion with CCP. That's why.
Exactly.
And so if you're the SSPX, you can't get bishops. If you are the Communist Party of China, you do get bishops. They have CCP bishops that they nominate, and then the Vatican ratifies, and then they just get consecrated, or they take their specific dioceses. So yeah, that's true. Let's see. Sushipe Me Materdei says, God bless you both. Ave Maria. Thank you. Likewise. Rob asks, well, I think you're better off to answer this question. When did the church start allowing married clergy? Under what circumstances?
Well, in the East, obviously, they've always had married clergy. They've always had married priests. And I mean, in the early church, you have to understand there wasn't just a bunch of random celibate people that were just waiting around randomly for our Lord to come, the Messiah to come, establish his church, and then to be priests. So it was something that was actually fairly common in the early church. I think a doctor of the church, Saint Hilary of Poitiers, had a wife and a daughter who's also a saint. But he was known as the Athanasius of the West. He's a doctor of the church. A lot of his writings are actually in the Roman Breviary. He was a married bishop. So the practice of celibacy didn't really get enforced into law really until like after the first millennia, in the year 1000. So even I found it even in the 1917 code, it allowed for married clergy, or there was laws governing married clergy, basically saying that married clergy had to be continent, of course, and any child born after they were ordained was considered illegitimate, which is something explicitly unique to the 1917 code as opposed to the 1983 code, because the 83 code doesn't have any consequences for any child that is illegitimate. But in the 17 code, if you were a male and you were an illegitimate child, meaning you were born outside of wedlock, or you were born to a priest who, after he was a priest, you were conceived, you yourself could not become a priest, simply by the fact that you were considered illegitimate. So there was those sorts of consequences and penalties. So I mean, the church has always had them. In what quantities and where has always changed. But yeah, it's always been there. You're muted.
There we go. I'm back. Yes, that is helpful. There are times where there's distractions, mostly from children. I'm not sure how many distractions is too many to receive our Lord.
42. 42 is the magic number. No. It really depends. Like if you're doing your duties, like if you're a dad and you're doing your duties, like you're doing your duty, your duties the duties of your state in life is pleasing to God. So yeah, if it's your duties, I wouldn't be too hard on yourself.
Yeah, what I usually do is that whenever we take the entire family to mass, I can take the 6-year-old, no problem. But if I take the 6-year-old and the 4-year-old, the 4-year-old will pick a fight with the 6-year-old, and it's distracting. So if I'm taking both of them, then I know I'm not going to receive Holy Communion. If the whole family goes, I'm not going to receive Holy Communion. If I go with the 6-year-old only, then it's definitely something that's doable. Chris Lopez asks question: is tight pants for women be considered a mortal sin? I would think that it would depend on the circumstance, correct, Father? Like just the tight pants in and of themselves.
I mean, in one sense, like you wear leggings or tight pants, but if you put a long dress over them, like the tight pants are to keep you warm, in and of themselves, no. But obviously, if you're wearing leggings as pants, it's a completely different story because obviously a woman has intentions for wearing leggings as or yoga pants as pants precisely to get attention, and to get that kind of attention to intentionally incite other people to lustful thoughts, which are mortal sins. If you're enticing other people to mortal sin, that in and of itself is mortal sin, grave matter. No question about it. Now, of course, tight pants could also mean like tighter jeans, these sorts of things. It's a little bit more common, not as maybe distracting as leggings for men or whatever. Although they make looser jeans, those sorts of things. But just I guess it depends on what you mean by pants. But definitely, if you're a woman, you can definitely still look feminine. Wear clothes that I mean shows that you have a female body, but it's not tight and inciting other people to lustful thoughts. And in fact, I mean, especially a lot of traditional men find modesty far more attractive, in the sense of looking at your face, looking at who you are as a person, remembering your name, than tight clothing. So
There we go. Walter says, good evening. Please pray for Arthur Cardinal Roach, prefect of the dicastery for divine worship and the discipline of the sacraments. Today is his birthday. Prayers for Cardinal Roach, specifically that he may convert to the Catholic faith, number one.
By the way, Wednesday was Alberto's birthday, so we have to all sing Alberto happy birthday. I'm not gonna
Walter says, St. Peter, first pope, had a family, but he was continent after he started to follow our blessed Lord. Rob says, there are many men wearing tight pants to church TLM.
It's true. It's true. What are you guys doing?
You probably go to an institute parish.
Some people, I mean, they have to have their unique styles and all that kind of stuff. Well, that's the thing is, even when they go to the traditional Latin mass, people, they just don't leave the world. I mean, if they're wearing that kind of clothes on Sunday, what are they wearing Monday through Saturday? I mean, how are they living their lives Monday through Saturday? Like, just because you go to a traditional Latin mass doesn't make you better, doesn't make you more holy or whatever else. Sure, you might say it's, the better form of the mass, but if you're not honestly trying to live the faith, like going to the traditional Latin mass isn't going to save you. If you don't say, I have to leave the world, I have to stop with these fashions. My fashion needs to be informed by my faith, not I'm going to wear my fashion to church. So no, there are many, many, many good styles out there. Plenty of options to buy clothes. I mean, some women say there's no options to buy clothes. No, maybe just the colors and the styles that you don't like. But who cares if you don't like the clothes? Just wear modest clothes. Like you don't have. There's no obligation to like your clothes. No obligation. Just wear something that's decent and modest, and that's it. Who cares if you like your dress? I don't care if you like your dress. Wear a modest dress. I don't care if you like your pants so they don't fit the way you want them to fit. Wear modest pants. You know?
There you go. I agree, Father. Chris says, Happy birthday, Alberto. Thank you. Rob says, Feliz cumpleaños, Alberto. Thank you. Thank you so much. And Rob says, I don't go there anymore, Alberto, but you nailed it. Yeah. This is just now. You just know these things. So regarding my birthday, last year, I told my wife, I said, look, for my birthday, I'm just going to cook myself. Because I don't know any restaurants in the area that are better than what I can make myself. So I did that last year. But then during this year, I found actually a very, very good restaurant that I think is better. It's very expensive, but whenever you consider that you still have to spend a bunch of money to make food yourself, and then meaning good food like a good steak, it's not cheap,
Exactly.
even at the store.
You
And
consider
all that.
You save like $5 by going by
Yes.
cooking at home rather than going to the restaurant.
Exactly. The one thing that you do save on is usually drinks. Mark says,
Yeah.
"Oh, a prideful cook." It's really not that I'm not that good. It's just restaurants are not good. That's it. Like, it's not that I'm all that good. It's that you see like restaurant people at Costco buying their stuff. It's like, well, I can do the same thing. I can go to Costco and then buy my food at Costco and then just make it at home. Or then they get the food delivered. There's a really good video actually on YouTube talking about why the food at the restaurants is all the same. Meaning local restaurants, not chains, but local restaurants are horrible. So anyway, that's that. So we had a very, very good dinner, and Mark says at the next gala he could cook. Now, I don't know, the food at this year's PROCEDAMUS was wonderful. It really was. It wasn't the typical like wedding food that is kind of not really good. It was very good food.
I've been getting compliments from local people, that have gone to several galas, all the kind of stuff, and they told me actually just tonight, out of all the galas we've been to, this was actually probably our favorite. I was like, wow, that's pretty impressive compliment. Given the fact this was our first one, we had kind of no idea. I've never been to galas. Like, this is my thing. I'm a poor monk, we just put something together with all the help that we could, and we made it a great evening. Everybody enjoyed it, thoroughly enjoyed it, and so we're gonna do our best to obviously keep the same idea, but improve where we can improve. But I mean, everybody who went to the gala is still talking about it. It's awesome.
Yeah, and that may be, I don't like going to galas. Really, Father, I don't like going to galas because when you go to these secular galas, it's all fake. Everybody's fake. Nobody likes each other. Everybody's just really there because it's good for business or whatever. And then especially when you're a traditionalist Catholic, nobody likes what you believe. So I think that when we're at PROCEDAMUS, and maybe Rob, maybe you can identify with this, we're there and we feel like we're with our people. Like, it's not a you don't have to be fake. You're there with your priest. You're there with usually at galas and in towns and cities, there's galas like every weekend. People there that are there are not there because they want to go to heaven. So the whole PROCEDAMUS Gala was what we do with the crisis, how we move forward, and how we get to heaven. So maybe that's why. It is also my favorite gala, but I'm biased. And I don't like going to galas anyway. So the Lost Creole says, Alberto, what is more important, food, atmosphere, or service? Oof. This is a question, Father, that is probably worth it for. I'll give my answer and then you'll give your answer. Maybe they'll be, I have a feeling they may be different. So food is very important. It's probably the most important for me. And then atmosphere, the least. Sometimes you're like, yeah, this restaurant, like it looks kind of whatever, but the food is really, really nice, or the service is exceptional. So I would say food, and then very, very closely following service, because if you have really bad service, it can ruin the food. Like they'll bring it and it'll be cold, or
you won't have a beverage to eat your food with because they didn't come back and refill you.
Exactly. And for example, if you at a restaurant and you order a steak and they don't bring it to you at the right time, it's ruined. So they it just really depends. But I would say food number one, service close to number one, but right there, and then atmosphere. What do you think, Father?
Actually, I'm 100% in line with you. That food is number one. If I don't like the food, then I'm just not gonna go back. But service is also very important because I don't, in one sense, I don't recognize good service as well. I mean, I make sure to tip and all that kind of stuff, but it doesn't. If I have a good service, it doesn't cross my mind. I just tip my usual, knowing that the tips is where the waiter makes the majority of their money. But yeah, if there's bad service, then I start complaining, and then I start getting frustrated and thinking maybe I shouldn't just come back here because there are other restaurants with good food. So the service is definitely a close second, a very close second. Atmosphere, it's a nice touch. Um, Obviously, it's a selling point to beat out all the other restaurants that have good food and good service. But it's not a requirement or a necessity for me to go to the restaurants. Like I'll go to a restaurant, even though I know a place where there's good atmosphere, good food, and good service. I could also go to a different restaurant for good food and good service because it's Italian rather than a steak. So
Make sure to unmute myself before talking. Thank you so much for the super chat, Mr. Mark Becker. And this is a wonderful time to remind everybody that Restless Heart Media, an apostolate of the Oblates of St. Augustine, is now monetized on YouTube. So you can join Mr. Mark Becker and supporting Restless Heart Media in the super chat. It goes a long way. Helps YouTube promote the channel. Of course, it's a huge benefit to the Oblates of St. Augustine, Restless Heart Media. So thank you so much, Mark, for the super chat. We appreciate you joining us on Tuesdays and Fridays on Spoken Issues and all that stuff. Thank you.
absolutely, Mark. Thank you so much, Mark.
And so going back to this, where we went, I've been to that restaurant twice. So one time I had guests from out of town and I took them, and they were from the Midwest, and they were mind blown because Mexico, in terms of the food service industry, has a good reputation as being a country where you usually get very good service. Even though it may be a small, family restaurant, you'll get very good service compared to a lot of places in the United States. So I took my friends over from the Midwest to this restaurant, and they were mind blown. And then when we went over, had a really nice time. And we went with our children, so sometimes the restaurants will be very really not very friendly. It really depends on the waiter or waitress. This time around, very nice restaurant. Took the children. Was talking with the waiter about how he has his own children and all that stuff. So we really had a very pleasant time. So I would say, and Father Martin agrees, Restless Heart Media approved. Food number one, service closely following, and then atmosphere. It's a nice addition. But if there's a restaurant, Father, where they have good food and good service, usually you won't care how it really looks because either the food or the service will make up for it. So that's what I would say. What do you think, Los Krill? Do you agree with our analysis there? Rob says we loved the food at PROCEDAMUS. Yes, we got our plates, Father, and everybody. I think Adrian said, "Oh, this is a Father Martin plate, no vegetables."
What's funny is actually, so they gave me all these options. And of course, there are all these complicated names. I have no idea what I'm looking at, right? And not even how to pronounce after the names. But I realized there was chicken and there was steak. Chicken or steak. And I was like, both. Can we have both? And it was like, oh yeah, we could always do both. I mean, for an upcharge or whatever else. I'm like, of course. But the veggies were supposed to be like chef's choice. So it wasn't Father Martin that influenced the lack of veggies. I mean, there were some veggies, but for me, it's just like decoration, right? There's some mashed potatoes in the middle. There were delicious mashed potatoes. But yeah, it was chicken and steak. And I got a lot of compliments from that too, because a lot of people were like, yeah, when we go to galas, it's always one or the other. And I was like, well, I figured people would have, there was no option. Like there was no way for me to ask, do you want chicken or do you want steak? Because you can, whatever. So I just said, no, both. So I'm glad people liked it.
We have a few questions left to go. We are at our time limit, but look, we'll keep it going as long as the questions keep going. Do you agree with that, Father? Are you against that?
Yeah, of course.
All right, there we go. Rob asks, did Saint Augustine abandon or left his family after he became bishop? So he wasn't married. He had one son. What do you say about this, Father?
So he had a concubine that actually left him after they had their son. He had a concubine that went back to Africa or whatever else. So he was a single father. But his son, Adeodatus, given by God, that was his name, Adeodatus. He actually became a monk with Saint Augustine. So he didn't abandon his family. His son became a monk with him. So, and then his concubine left him. So
Chris asks question: if one has racism against another race, can she still receive Holy Communion? It really would depend. Like probably what the leftists mean nowadays as racism. It doesn't really mean anything. But if assuming racism being like you want all the people from another race to go to hell, then I wouldn't necessarily label it as racism. It's just is that you hate other people, which we cannot do. But if you think, for example, oh, a certain demographic is really bad or something like that, I don't see I don't really see anything wrong with that. What do you think, Father?
the question about what one means by racism is one's race the cause of behavior, or is free will and one's nurturing, one's upbringing the cause of behavior? Two different things. Because if one's race is the cause of one's behavior, what you're essentially doing is denying free will, which is against our faith. We believe in free will. So your skin color does not determine your behavior. Simple as. And so if that's what you believe, you're more of an atheist determinist, to where your behavior is a result of your biology, of the neurons in your brain, all that kind of stuff. But if you say, okay, this demographic of people, this group of people, has these societal influences, lack of fatherhood, for instance, music, promotion of immoral behavior, and a lot of the vast majority of a particular group of people grows up being educated by this sort of teaching of bad behavior, and they go out in society and comport themselves, behave themselves according to how they were raised. That's not really racism. It's recognizing that there's a group of people, a group of people that are raised a certain way, and they act according to how they were raised. That's not really racism. That's just understanding certain demographics. So if that's what you mean by racism, then I think you can receive Holy Communion, because that's just normal. It's just reality. People without fathers end up wanting to go to the FSSP. Simple as. You can predict it.
There we go. So let's see. Dallas Krill says no, he doesn't agree with us. He says the best food is at home. Although it cannot be bad, it's not good. Atmosphere number 1 and service number 2, things you cannot get at home. So that. I think this is a fair point, because as we were talking about earlier, you can make good food at home. Like Father Man, you are very good at cooking. So I do agree that it is true that you can get very good food at home. However, it's sort of like the whole point of going to a restaurant. It usually is not that you are going to get really good food, but it is that you don't have to make the food at home, and you don't have to clean up and all that stuff, and go buy the ingredients and then make them.
Well, it's hard to be the host and to cook at the same time. That's the hard part. So especially if you want to do more of the hosting, like you have a conversation to have with somebody, all that kind of stuff. You want to focus more on the relationship aspect of things. It makes sense to invite someone out to a meal than to cook a meal at your house. But if it's just you and your family, yeah, I mean, cook at home.
There we go. Let's see. Where's my tab go? Looking for it. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. I'm back. All right. So Mark says, as a Bumble dater, the company can ruin the meal. Yes, there we go. Racism. I don't like anyone very much. There we go. And we ran out of questions, Father. We ran out of questions. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. It's wonderful to spend some time here with you all. Mark says, I remember most priests had housekeepers.
Yeah.
would be nice for the Oblates to have a housekeeper.
You know, it's really funny in the 17 code, 1917 code, there was a law governing who could be your housekeeper, because most often than not it was a woman. So she either had to be above 65 years of age, or, and it says it this way, or beyond temptation. So if she was younger than 65, she had to be beyond temptation, which basically means ugly, really ugly, right? And so that had to be qualified according to the law. So I kind of use that as a joke, and saying that, that as a celibate priest, like, that's the best compliment I can give to a young woman is saying, "I'm sorry, you can't come to my house and clean my toilets."
That's funny. Cruz Lopez. I can picture Father being a future cardinal. Oh no. I don't know.
Why do you hate
I don't know
me? Why do you hate me? Why would you wish that on me?
There's a pretty funny story that maybe I'll tell next week or something regarding the right before the gala and all that stuff and this specific topic. Maybe I'll tell it next Friday. But anyway, thank you all so much for joining us tonight. Father, anything before we go? We're back on Tuesday, but anything else?
Yes, next week, March 11th, we're going to have Unspoken Issues again with Archbishop Mikkel and Father Lafort and myself. And this time I actually created an intro. So the outro to this show is going to be the intro to the next show. So you get a little sneak peek for joining in tonight for the new intro to Unspoken Issues. We're likely, I mean, I'm the host, so I get to determine the topics of the show. We're going to be talking about conditional sacraments. So people constantly ask about, can I get a conditional baptism? Okay, well, what does that mean? What is that? What are the consequences of this? What are all the side effects, sort of thing? Conditional confirmation. What about priests and conditional orders? All that sort of stuff. I know a lot of people have a lot of questions about that. So Archbishop Mikkel, Father Lafort, and I will be having sort of a roundtable about conditional sacraments. So join us on Wednesday night.
There we go. So it's an extra content on Restless Heart Media week. Thank you all so much for watching. See you all on Tuesday.